On this episode of Common Mystics, we speak with a very special guest about the divine nature of humanity and our connectedness with our celestial families. I'm Jennifer James.
I'm Jill Stanley.
We're psychics.
We're sisters.
We are common mystics. We find extraordinary stories in ordinary places. But today we're discussing the thought-provoking book, Awkward Awakening, Finding Your Way Home. Jill, will you please introduce our special guest?
I would love to. I'm so excited to introduce to you all today. Our guest is a psychologist, an educator, an author specializing in the human and spiritual development with advanced degrees in psychology and over 2 decades of teaching experience. He explores the ways people connect to the divine and their inner selves. His works, including Angels in Training series and Looking for Angels, invite readers to discover their own spiritual potential. And he has one more new title under his belt, Awkward Awakenings, Find Your Way Home. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our friend, Dr. Scott Guerin. Hello.
Hello. Well, thank
Yay!
you, Jen and Jill. Always good to see you too.
It's
You as
so good to
well.
have you on, and I'm so excited. Congratulations on the new book.
Yes, thank you. It was like a year. It was like, 1 year pretty much from the beginning to the end. So,
It is fascinating to dive into the twists and turns about what's happening in our dimension and how
mm.
things are coming to a head. So I am really enjoying it. I look forward to getting my hands on
Oh
a
yeah.
copy because I'm
Yes.
listening to it on Audible right now. But
Yeah.
I want to underline, I want to highlight. I wish that I had a hard copy, so because I there's
Yeah.
so many notes that I have for you that I wanted to be like, talk to me about this, like explain this to me. But there's so much information, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and that's what the audiobook is good, in one sense, but there are some technical spots that, you have to either stop it or whatever. But the paperback's out and then the ebook will be out in the next couple weeks. So, different formats. So
Awesome.
that's it.
Before we jump into the book, let's talk a little bit about you because your background is fascinating. How would you describe your personal belief system as it is today? And has it always looked this way or has it changed over time?
Well, it's definitely changed over time. I was talking with somebody the other day and they go, "Where did your spiritual journey begin? Like when it was at our time?" And my like ad hoc reaction was, I came in hot.
Mm.
Like when I was a kid, like, teenager, I just was fascinated. The only thing about church that I liked, we went to a Lutheran church, was the sermons. And like I just soaked that up. And then so I just had that kind of searching, missing, and then lately I've been thinking, they say like if you tie into your extraterrestrial roots, you may feel like you haven't been at home, you haven't been at rest in this world, and I very much kind of felt that way. I always kind of felt a little bit out, displaced in a sense and searching, keep searching, digging deeper.
Is
And
that was the inspiration behind the title of the book, Find Your Way Home?
yes, yes, very much so, because that's one part of it's a two-part awakening that and there's lots of talks about the awakening, the ascension, and all this stuff. So, I'm presenting one perspective of it, and it's a two-part, and the first part is our divine connection, and that we are multidimensional people living in a three-dimensional box. And it is a
Mm.
box, and then in certainly our divine connection. And science is catching up a little bit, with consciousness kind of creeping into the hard physics, where some of the models and theories, they only make sense if they're placed inside a one consciousness universe.
Mhm.
So once we get that we are all part of one consciousness, and we're all together, we're all bound together in some form. That's when the second awakening is going to come with a more interactive relationship with our extraterrestrial neighbors.
Does organized religion play any part in your belief system today?
Not today, but it did probably play a part. And that's, answering your question too, like where am I now versus where was I? And, I spent, decades in organized religion, because it was the only thing that, kind of showed me like, here's God, here's what you need to do and this and that. So, and I learned a lot about, the nature of spirituality and angels and different things and stories along the way. But each denomination that I was in, mostly Protestant denominations, I kind of got to a hard wall, with,
Mm.
like a box, like this is our religion and it's this box. And I was in seminary for a few years, a conservative Christian seminary. There was too many times where like, Scott, can you speak with us after class? Because I was
You got in
bringing up these
trouble.
questions like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how did, and so things like that. And then certainly, it became religion for me just didn't, meet what or where I was going. It
Right.
just was too many defined, things. And if you don't believe that, you're questioning the church and this and that. So that's when I kind of launched out. Was spent about 10 years in just exploring meditation
Mm.
and that whole thing, lots of different ways and techniques and just quieting my mind, getting in touch because I was kind of burnt out with all aspects of religion. And that's when I kind of came to the point like, whoa, I want something a little more specific. And then
Mm.
that's when the angels came up. And I don't know if everybody knows, but I wrote a book, Looking for Angels, with Nicole Bigley,
That's right.
psychic intuitive. And then that's when my spirit world really kind of took off because I opened my mind and my heart to, having a robust relationship with spirit beings.
Well, that's rather recent.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, two and a
My,
half years ago. And then as a result of that, like, yeah, I do have a spirit team. I do have a spirit animal, and I can make this thing, my spiritual life grow with the simple step of asking, just ask, show me
Mhm.
my spirit guide, show me my spirit animal. And
Mhm.
then I took a divine mediumship course with Carolyn Swift Jones. And that's when it got even more personal because she was, providing techniques of how to be sensitive to others and being in her definition of mediumship is a little bit broader. It's almost like, bringing in your psychic senses, your clairvoyance and this and
Mhm.
that. And one big thing for me was we'd have like 15 people in the class. It was a 6 week class, I think. And so she would have something called the sandbox at the end of this at the 3 hour meeting, right? And so you have this, it was a Zoom meeting, so you have everybody's, squares, everybody's in their
Mhm.
square boxes. And she says, okay, and this was after a few weeks of just learning how to, quiet your mind and trust in your intuition and so that. She goes, you could just turn your gaze away or blur your gaze a little bit of the screen. And if there's anyone that kind of stands out to you, like that you have some kind of connection with them this evening, like just ask them. Her protocol was you ask, Jill, may I give you a message? Like, and then they
Yes.
have to say yes, which I didn't realize that. Well, anyway, for her, it was protocol.
Mhm.
And so the first week I chickened out. The second week, and she says, you may have something in your mind when you see this person, or you may not, but just go with it. Right.
Mhm.
So, and she said, we're all friends here. We're all new, so don't worry. So anyway, 2 times I did that. And the person goes like, wow, thank you so much. That's exactly, I saw this one woman, I saw her painting on a sidewalk,
Oh,
like
wow.
somewhere in some city. And I said, you're just having such a good time. She goes, thank you so much. My dad, we lived in Brooklyn or Queens or somewhere, very, congested. My dad always wanted me to paint. So we'd set up a painting set up on the sidewalk.
Oh.
And they were the best times. And he had passed or something
Mhm.
like that. And she goes, thank you so much for that. I'm like, wow. But anyway, so that's kind of the trajectory is that, if 3 years ago, if somebody said, do you have psychic abilities? I go, no. Do you
Mm.
have communication with any spirit beings or your parents? My parents passed in 2020. I go like,
Oh,
no.
I'm sorry.
And so, but they're around.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that whole thing kind of opened up for me. And I'm, you know, light years ahead of what I was even like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Mm. Isn't
Is
that
there
crazy?
is there anything difficult or disorienting by having these awakenings, especially in this short period of time, which is relatively short in the past 4
Yeah,
years?
it's unnerving at times, you
Mm.
know. I've been asked, and I've been trying to get into this more, the whole channeling thing,
Ooh.
you know. So like I knew when I've written up, on and off over the years, and even the Angel book, I would have times of automatic writing where I'd kind of be writing and then I'd be, in it kind of working through a chapter or a thought, and then I'd just kind of like blank out for, a few seconds or, 15, 20 seconds. And then I'd look down and like, whoa, there's a couple paragraphs there, exactly what I wanted. And it's brilliant. Like, who wrote this? So I had that, and a lot of people channel books, just verbatim. There's a lot of channelers out there. And this book, Awkward Awakening, I was told I was going to write it in advance, which is interesting. And then I would get the proverbial, 3 a.m., you get an idea. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, thank you for that. And it's not from you. Thank you for that idea. Thank you. And then other times I get an idea and then a sentence and then another sentence and then a paragraph, then a couple, and I'm like, oh, no, no, I have to get my phone because I know I'm
Mm,
not going to remember this. And I knew I'm going to be up for a while. And it was a great experience, but that's how this book was written, a little more directly, spirit coming through me.
wow.
And then channeling like in person, like on calls and podcast, it's weird for me. It's like, and I'm looking into that more and talking with some people about how do I do that, because I can sense it, but it's like I'm holding on somehow,
Mm.
and I gotta let go, put my ego in the background,
Mm,
Mhm.
and that's what's hard and a little unnerving. It's very uncomfortable, for me.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's where I'm going to be going, but I don't
Wow.
know.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Especially
Wow.
with this book, and I've been doing a couple podcasts and kind of talking about it. And as you know, presenting, I just, ask like, please help me at my ego on the side and then
Mhm.
see how that goes, and don't worry about the outcome. Oh, and that, yeah, I present it as a message. It's not a book. It's a message, for
Oh,
me,
Mm.
I like that.
because I don't want to be like I'm promoting my book or whatever. I don't really care about how many books are sold, but I care deeply about the message because that's how it was presented to me. You have a message,
Wow.
at this point in time.
That's beautiful. Scott, when you channel or when you feel that message coming through you right onto the page, do you have a sense of where it's coming from? In other words, is it coming from, or does it feel like it's coming from your higher self? Does it feel like it's coming from an angelic place? Does it feel like divine? Like, what does that feel like?
Yeah. Well, first thing, and I don't know if it makes it, if it's a point important or not, but I have to get my mind in a place, whether, so I listen to meditative music,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some wonderful, chanting musics that, or sections that I just have on a loop sometimes. And I get kind of like a chill, kind of like I'm cold chill.
Mm,
And I kind of know like that's it. Okay, I'm connected. It's like being connected in, and then I feel good. Like sometimes will happen in the mornings, or I feel like, oh, I'm good for the day. I feel confident. But interesting you say that about the difference, the different feeling is that for a long time I just knew it was, more angelic realm, and
Mm-hmm.
my angelic team, Archangel Gabriel, to put a name to it,
Mm-hmm.
and Archangel Michael and some other spirit beings, ascended masters that had come in. There was one Indian woman that kind of formed in my mind and can make a connection there.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was working, for a while. And then on the Psychic Story podcast, we had a witch on one time, a Wiccan witch, and a wonderful person, And she was saying like, hey, one thing, I recommend is scrying and some other things. And then wait a minute, scrying. And then she went back to that, after it was all recorded. She happened to go back into detail, and she goes, yeah, just take a mirror in darkened room, a mirror with a candle, stare into your eyes, and like leave some background space. So when you look into the mirror, if something visual comes through, you'll be able to see a figure or something. And she said, but most people just write, just write. So I'm like, well, I'm going to try that, So same thing, get into mood, meditative state, kind of positive. And then I started writing. And I'm like, well, this is different. And I couldn't, it was all just monologue. I couldn't ask questions. It was like, just coming down. So it was all very positive, and it was like, we're so happy you're here. We're so happy that you're going to work on this book. It was all around the beginning of the book. And, some personal stuff, like some people was having some issues with, like, and they would say like, they're looking for something that you can't give, or like some kind of insightful part
Mm.
like that. So I was doing that for a few weeks, and their overall demeanor was just so happy and fun. Like,
Mm.
we're so glad you're here. We can't wait to see you again, or to talk with you again. So for weeks I was doing that. I'm like, wait a minute, who is this? In my mind, I'm like, who is this? And this is going to be a big one. So I was thinking about it for a few days, and then I just was kind of moved to do another session, right? And at the very end, we are the Palladians. That's an extraterrestrial group in the cluster, the Pleiades. And so then I got the different feel. It was a different feel. It was more of a, lack of better words, crisper, crisper type of more defined feeling, when the
Mm.
angelic team is more like softer, deeper. You know,
Mm.
if there's any comparison, that would be it.
In the book, you talk about these dimension changing, the dimensions, like ascending the dimensions, right?
Mm.
And I'm wondering if someone is not spiritually attuned or doesn't know of the concept, would they still be affected by these dimensional shifts?
Yeah, I think it's more like, you'll have a bad day and you won't know why, or, or you have connections or synchronicities will just go flying over your head and you won't even notice, type of thing. So, yeah, I think that it's more of missing out on a lot, if you're, and so many people and so many good friends and even, family. For me, I start talking about this and it's like, you just get the dead eye, like, what? You talking about? And so they're just zeroed in, as I was, zeroed into our 3D reality and what's happening and this and that. And, this is happening in the world and, whatever it may be, you just wrapped into that. So you have to become aware, of that there are other dimensions. And hopefully that's what I do in the book, that we can experience other dimensions and what they're
Mhm.
like. And anything from the third and fourth dimension is all good, is all positive, So that's the encouraging part. Yeah, go reach for that fifth dimensional experience
Mhm.
while we reside in the hard dimensions of the three-dimensional reality here. We can experience other dimensions by changing our density, which
Mm.
is walking in, enjoying a sunset, having a romantic dinner with your lover, having puppies all over you, whatever
Oh,
it
I
may
love
be.
it.
Those are the things that we can experience the other dimensions in that.
You reference a lot of different masters throughout the book. You are talking about concepts and then you flip back to where you've heard these concepts before. So I'm
Mm.
wondering who was very instrumental in crafting those concepts that you present throughout the book. Who would you go to as like one of the sources that you're like, oh man, this is great?
Well, I always try and mix it up. I mean, being, in research, in a academic research, programming, you really need to have multiple sources.
Mm-hmm.
And that not only does it validate what you're saying, if you look at multiple sources saying similar things or agreeing. So yeah, I didn't want to stay with too many single source, type of things. But I did center on Lisa Royal Holt and Barbara Hanclough and Dolores Cannon. I would say those were the three bigger names that and more well-known names. And as I say in the book, like, yeah, okay, because that's the thing. This book is written for the people who are just starting. They may have the same feelings about organized religion. I'm kind of done with that. I want to venture out. But how can I trust anybody? Do I go on TikTok and get a reading? What do I do? So I bring up the idea of channeling. The Apostle Paul wrote half of the New Testament, and I suggest that he channeled it, right? Inspired, the word, scripture's inspired by God. It's God breathed. It's a very great example of channeling. And then there are other channelers that that do things and say things and write books. And I stayed with the dozen or so, 15 channelers that I mentioned. Some are angelic, some celestial, some extraterrestrial. I stay with the ones who've been channeling a specific source for a long time, 20, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Royal Holt's been channeling Germaine and Satya, a Palladian female, for like 30 years. You know,
Yeah.
so at least that's one reasonable way to look at it. To approach it and that content.
Hmm.
She's coming up with a question. I can see it in her face.
Well, first of all, I just want to hit this nail on the head that a couple times you've talked about organized religion, and I know that we have listeners for whom their organized religious background is in direct conflict with this sort of spiritual awakening. And your perspective, Scott, and I know Jill's and mine are the same as yours, that I am glad for my organized religious upbringing because it provided a context for experiencing my spirituality and
Yeah, yeah,
understanding my spirit. Now, I'm not still practicing, but without that background, I wouldn't have a relationship with spirit the way I do.
right,
So, and I think that's really important. And I don't think that we should throw out the baby with the bathwater.
right. I agree.
There
Yeah,
are good things that come out of organized religion. There's a lot that I don't agree with, and that's why I'm not still practicing, but I'm grateful for it. So I just wanted to hit that nail on the head because I know for a lot of people that's still a conflict, like it says in the
yeah.
Bible right here, that
It's
the
the
witch should
difference.
be whatever.
It's the difference between in the Protestant denominations. Is the Bible the truth, or does
Right.
the Bible contain the truth? you know and yeah,
Right.
it does contain the truth. There are, if you dig through and look through with some discernment, the teachings of Jesus they're tremendous. But
Right.
there are other things that were added on, that type of thing. But yeah,
Right.
you can't, and I don't I don't want to dismiss the value of organized religion even today.
Right.
There's so many great people I met in my path that were truly spiritually connected people, very
Yeah.
passionate about their religion.
Right. And also, don't you think that the Bible just needed one good editor? Like one good editor to go through and be like, this is redundant. This is smut. Like we shouldn't be talking, like
A
read the
lot of
Yeah,
room.
it's contradictory too. It's like that,
One good
like
editor. That's all you
yeah.
need.
It's like it was written for certain, our journey at a certain place in time, you know.
Right.
that's
And
really
yeah,
Y-
profound. I would have conversations with people of different denominations, and that is the one message that I get a lot is that that was a moment in time for our journey, and it's reflective of that time.
Yeah.
So that's really profound.
The two statistics that I like to think about is that, well, first, that there's about 4,200 different denominations in the world. Like
Mm.
Christianity is one, Islam is another, 4,200.
Oh my.
And then within the Christian tradition, within the Christian traditions, there's like about 35 to 40,000 variations. The Methodist, the this, the that, and all the variations within Catholicism. So you have all kinds of perspectives, on things.
Okay, so I am looking for some clarity here, Scott. Okay.
Oh, wow.
When we're talking about awakening, we're talking about personal awakening. We're also talking about collective awakening. And then you've mentioned first awakening, second awakening. I need you to kind of instruct, talk to me like I'm a fourth grader, like explain, because this term awakening, it's really packed, you know?
Yeah.
So can you kind of take me through exactly these concepts?
Well, certainly the awakening is multi-layer, multi-level, and the two that I present are just two components and two perspectives of an awakening process that differs for different people. So that's what my message is. You're just focus on these two, type of thing, and I think they are the most profound, at least for me. So, and this book is very future oriented, because certainly with the ET part and the first contact and that type of thing, but also it shows where the state of organized religion, as more people continue to leave and not identify with an organized religion, where are we going to? So, so those two components are what I had put in, as far as let's start with these two type of thing. And then I think the awkwardness applies to those two, both individually and in a societal level, because they're new ideas. They're breaking away, from the organized religion, right? 80% of the world is either, Jewish, Christian, Islam, Hindu, or Buddhist, and at least they say they are, so, but we're breaking away from that, adding another firm option in a sense. It's like independent, like independent model. And so that's new, and it's going to be strange. And, people are going to wonder, like, what are you talking about now? Having a direct contact with angels, or thinking that you're a part of the divine being, like God, you're godlike, they
Hmm.
give you those furrowed brows. So that's the first, and that happens to be where humanity needs to go in order to have contact with our extraterrestrial neighbors. They're waiting for us. They're not going to save us. They're not gods. They're our brothers and sisters,
Hmm.
just maybe 500 million years ahead of us, in some cases. But they've been waiting. And I have a chapter on that. Why haven't we been contacted? And I have a lot of ideas on that. But the biggest thing is they're waiting for us to mature, come into our own. And that key component is what a lot of people call unity consciousness, that we are all one. We are one civilization on planet Earth.
Hmm.
And once that happens, once we're more unified, then that's when it'll be safe, because we won't be infighting and threatening and ramping up nuclear testing and bombing, because they don't want to bring us into their worlds with that.
Mm.
So they're waiting
Yeah.
for us to deal with that and work it through. Now, how is that going to happen? When? Some say within a few years.
What a
I don't
disappointment we
know.
are.
Yeah, yeah,
Stop. We're on our
yes,
own journey.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
so when people think of ETs or extraterrestrials, they're thinking of like people in the farm country that get abducted and they're probed. What, for people that are ignorant to that energy level, can you please explain how, like, what more, like, fill in the blanks for me? What more are they? Like, and do you believe that they are coming to the cornfields and abducting people and probing people?
Well, I'd say yes, but let me first introduce a story I learned years ago. I was in marketing, and we worked with a automotive dealership, car sales. And I learned about the 311 rule. And they said, I don't know if you know, 311 rule, if they buy a car from a dealership and you have a bad experience, you're going to tell 11 people. But if you go and you have a good experience, you'll probably tell three, because there was no big deal. It was everything went as usual. You got your car, you liked it. Why you do that? But if you have a complaint, that and then plus you look at the news is all bad news because bad news, people want to hear bad news. They don't want to hear a news station of all the good things that happened that day. It's not going to, it's just our nature, it's our DNA
Yeah.
to take the thread and pull on it, to look at a spot on, you see a white piece of paper and a black dot on it, we always go to the black dot. So when someone has a so-called abduction story,
Hmm.
and they're a little terrified, that makes, that's what you talk about to everybody, because it's just more juicy. So some of the abductions, and Lisa Royal Holt really gets into this to a great level, and she claims that any physical experience, like if we see a ship, if we see something, or if we're abducted, it's all been prepped for, we're all prepped by the ETs, either subconsciously or even prior to this life, saying, okay, you're going to live this life as Jen, and you're going to be abducted at the age of 14, and whatever may happen. So, and then certainly several authors say that that's the way they communicate with us now, is
Well,
through
and
our subconscious.
that's compatible with the soul contract theory
Yeah,
that a lot of psychics have. So
yeah,
we are
right,
just in our
exactly.
soul contract, we're just putting in ET probing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so some of it does seem severe, when you read the stories, probing and this and that. And it is quite horrifying, to see. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind, that's good to keep in mind, that especially the Zeta Reticuli, right? They are the grays, from that star system.
Hmm.
The classical, oval shaped head, almond shaped eyes, and some are tall, some are short, whatever it may be. Especially the Zetas, is that they went through their journey as a civilization when, as a couple others have, they decided that emotion was not a good thing for them, you know very much like the Vulcans on the Star Trek episodes, right? They were warring and they said no emotion, and so they it's all logic, and they have that kind of interplay throughout all the series. But apparently that's what actually happened with them, to the point where the Greys almost extinguished themselves because they had absolutely no emotion. They weren't producing more, more of them, and so they're coming to Earth in recent thousands of years, but coming to Earth to try and get some of that emotion back, to experience that.
Oh, they came to
But
the right place.
but in the meantime, when they come, their emotional level is very narrow. So they have a job to do. They may be trying to, get some DNA. They may be trying to do something, monitor where humans are at this time, monitor diseases, bring it back to their species. But they're not going to be empathetic. They're not going to be, oh, so sorry, are we disturbing you? Are you frightened? No, that's not on their
Mm.
radar. They're there like boom, that and that. And then they do have some mind control things that, can make us forget what happened. Or even our own brains, may just
Mhm.
click off, like PTSD,
Mm.
It's a
we just
natural
bury
trauma
it.
response.
Yes, right, right. So between those
It's
things, so that those types of dramatic things, I think, happen. I think they're more infrequent than
mm.
frequent, and they are the ones that people like to shout about and bring about, like, hey, it was horrible, and listen to me, and we got
it
to tell somebody.
it sounds like we are smut reality TV for
Yeah.
the extraterrestrials.
Yes. And a lot of that fear, and then this is one thing I stumbled on, and Jen, you'll like this, is that I don't know if you got to this part in the book, but that a lot of the fear, any fears that we have, if you have a fear of snakes, spiders, whatever, though it's not a fear of that snake. It's some sort of deep, deep seated fear of something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a loss of
Mm-hmm.
control, maybe a loss of abandonment, maybe some ambiguous, like terrifying thing that you can't even explain shows up when you see a snake or a spider or whatever it may be. And that once we make connections with that in ourselves, right, we have the shadow work, right? The things that
Mm-hmm.
when we can, and I say in the book, shadow work. And so before I get into that, once we resolve and accept and integrate the fears that we have, our deep-seated fears that we may even not know about, or consciously be able to put a tag on it. But if we do that, that's when more contact will be made and you'll feel more comfortable interacting with, a being that doesn't look anything like a human. So the shadow work part is something. So Lisa Royal channeled this from Sasha or Satya, one of the two. They were talking about how ETs communicate with us now. And she said, okay, suppose you're in a conference room, and a big conference room, a few hundred people. You're in the back of the room and there's a speaker in front. You see the speaker, like you'll see maybe their head and the top part of their shoulders. And you'll be listening to them, hearing them. You'll see their facial expressions, because this and that. But if you sit midway up, you might see their torso. You might see a little bit of their hands moving and gesturing. You'll get more information about them. And then if you're in the front row, you'll see their full body, their feet. You'll see if their legs are crossed or not. Are they, moving around? Are they jittery? Whatever it may be. And those are the three minds, right? The beta, alpha, theta, and the delta brainwave frequencies are the three minds, and that the subconscious and the unconscious are where our fears are kept, in a sense. And so when an ET looks at someone, and if they have a lot of things about themselves that they don't like, or a lot of fears or embarrassing things or guilty, whatever it may be, it like clogs the communication with them. In their eyes, they look at us like a convoluted, conflicting bunch of energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so they communicate with us the best way they can, which is through our dreams in the subconscious state. And so integrating those three, so they can see the three minds at the same time. And when we integrate our hearts and minds and thoughts, that's when a full connection will be made, because we're talking then on the same level. Yeah. And so those three minds, Jen, I'm sure you probably thought of it. I think I invented this connection.
Yeah.
The Freud's iceberg model. You have the
Mm-hmm.
conscious mind is the smallest part of the iceberg
Mm-hmm.
outside of the water, and then subconscious and unconscious beneath that. And so it's same
Mm-hmm.
thing with human minds. And that's one thing that we can do, is work on our shadow selves and work on our fears. And then this
Mm-hmm.
way we'll become more comfortable in anything new,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we'll have more contact with them. I don't know if I went
Mm-hmm.
off a path on
No,
No,
that, but
no.
no, that makes perfect sense. So if I'm afraid of a snake, what I might really be afraid of is my lack of control over the situation.
yes, it could
Yes.
very well be.
And
Yeah.
and that
Mm-hmm.
has to do with me, but also I'm not honoring the fact that I am one with the snake, right? That we
Yes.
are
Yes.
all part of the same fabric
Yes.
of the energy of the universe.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I can get to that place where I can acknowledge and then cast aside my fears and sit in oneness with others,
Mm,
that presupposes that I need to release all of the baggage that maybe I
yes.
have assigned to the snake, right?
Right. Yeah. Yes. And then if there's whatever parts of your shadow self that you don't like, you don't have to get rid of it. I think that's the
Mm,
key thing. You just have
yeah,
to embrace it.
Yeah.
We
sure.
don't have to be
Integrate
all
it.
perfect, integrate. Yeah.
Right.
And then, and I also stress that you can't just like, oh, I'm gonna work with my shadow self this week, and oh, I got a list of things, and yeah, I was known as a bully when I was in high school, so
Yeah.
I got to own that, and or whatever it may be. But it's something deeper. It could be something really deep and almost obtuse and unidentifiable, but whatever it may
Yeah.
be, just a feeling it could be. But it
Mm.
takes a while and takes meditation as well as the cognitive work. You can do with a
Yeah.
lot of therapists and different things, but that's I think an important thing to at least address in our lives that will help us.
Well, I think too that people shouldn't beat themselves up about their shadow selves. I think
Mm,
that we're all on a journey and honoring where you are today, just being in a better place than where you were yesterday. That's the name of the game. Not
yeah,
that, you're supposed to live your life perfectly, right?
right.
Because a lot of us, look back and we're remorseful perhaps about things we've done, maybe regretful.
Mm,
But the other thing is and I want to get back to the psychology side because, in our line of business as psychics, we sometimes find that people who are dealing with this inner work, sometimes we do say, it might be a good idea to talk to a counselor, because
yeah,
real human things come up that, aside from the spiritual, like it's all one, it's all together. So,
yeah,
don't discount psychology, right?
right.
Eh,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Right. So I
yeah.
want to just mention that too. Sometimes things come up. Yeah. So just wanted
Yeah,
to say
like
that as well.
yeah, Young certainly did. I think maybe pioneered the whole shadow work approach to
Exactly.
things, and
Right.
he said your shadow self is going to come up, no matter what you do, it's going to bubble up somehow. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it's the hardest part, I think, of the awakening, of opening up your
yeah,
psychic self, because it really is going inward, isn't it?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's what all the big thought leaders in ET
Hmm.
contact. They always say the first step in making contact with an ET or accepting that we're going to eventually, the first step is starting within yourself.
Mm.
Always. It's not
Hmm.
like, oh, is Atlas, the Atlas thing, is that her ship coming? Is it, let's talk to somebody who had, saw ships and interacted with them. No, that's not the way to do it. The way, if you really want to get to know ETs and what they have, how they've been involving, themselves in our lives and in the world, is to connect with yourself.
There was a theory that I just recently heard that when we were doing nuclear testing in the past, like during like the 60s and the late 50s, that there was more connectivity between ourselves and ETs. There was like more sightings, there was more interest by the ETs. Is that something that you heard or is
Yeah.
that
Yeah, a number of cases. 1945, the first atomic bomb, ET, UFO, or now UAEs
mhm
or UAPs are, dramatically increased, and they were mostly around military bases.
mhm
Some say that they're watching us because for the first time in human history, we became capable of destroying the planet and
mhm
ourselves. Some sources say that they won't let it happen, like they'll interfere to the extent that they won't allow, like our, nuclear missile going off won't be able to explode, which I don't know, if that's happening or not. They're certainly watching to
mhm
see what we're going to do. Yeah, and I think because of that, that's why the sightings increased. And now you have the whistleblowers that are coming out, and I write about this. The first real whistleblower was a fellow who was a part of the crash retrieval program that the military was running for like 30 years. Covert, no one knew about it. I mean, Area 51, and that was always there.
mhm
But he was part of it, and he was part of like going to the site, collecting material that was not of this planet. And he's like, we got to get to Congress. We got to tell people. And he was reprimanded. His job was sidelined. So he was the first to use the whistleblower protocols that were only in place like 5 or 6 years ago,
mhm
where people were protected, and that so he had to hire a lawyer, bring all his evidence, and have a hearing. So that was in 23, and then this last September, another hearing was televised through the House subcommittee, and three more whistleblowers came. and told everyone, what happened, what they saw. They saw lights, they saw ships, they saw interactions, and they also, their jobs were sidelined. They were fired. They couldn't get a job anymore. Their lives were threatened. Was one case. So I think those things are coming forward to say, like, yeah, this is a real thing, and hopefully just knowledge and awareness will help.
So certainly there is, if I use the analogy or the metaphor of trash TV, like, right, like I can put on Netflix and I'm watching the trash TV, like Love is Blind season 9. You know who I'm talking about. And then I have a life. I'm doing other things. I'm recording podcasts. I have a full-time job. Certainly there is some attention coming at us from the ETs, but what else are they doing? Like, don't they have something to do?
Do they have day jobs?
Yeah,
Like,
like what else are they doing?
Well,
so they're watching us. They're
other
watching
than
their trash TV via Earth.
And it's like, are you still
That's a
watching?
good
Yes.
question.
What else? What else
What
are they
else are they
doing?
doing? That's a good
well,
question.
helping, is the one overall message I got was, that they've been helping us all along.
Oh,
Some indirectly, some maybe directly, helping, some of the great inventions, right?
oh,
Einstein said M equals M equals
C
C
squared.
squared.
Yeah,
yeah.
MC squared.
MC squared, yes, came to him in a
E
dream.
equals MC squared. Yeah.
Nikola Tesla was very connected. He said he got the schematic of an electric motor in a flash in his mind, and he didn't even know what it was, but he had his people start working on building it, and that was the electric motor. So the dreams, is how they can
Mm.
kind of, I think, have been influencing humanity over the years, and all positive. You know,
Oh.
I guess, but humans maybe spin it to a little less positive. I don't know if the,
But they're
you
just
know,
very invested in us. Like, do
yes,
you, boo? Like, what are you guys doing on your
yeah,
planet? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's just, I'm like, what else? I mean, help me. Yes, please help me. Help me, Esther Trustos. But like, what, don't they have a purpose for themselves, not having a direct link to us? Or is the reason for their existence to help us?
Well, I think that is part of it. That the oneness extends beyond humanity.
Mm,
That they see us as, they see all things connected, right? Einstein said all points in time are connected, right?
mm,
Schrodinger said the number of minds in the universe is one, right?
mm,
So if you look at that overall concept, then yeah, then they're helping us because they're helping themselves in that
Mm.
sense. And
ah,
Lisa Royal Holt has a wonderful, it's like I was thinking about doing, like, getting involved with tarot cards. And
Mhm.
I even bought a deck and was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this journey of memorizing and looking. And I
Mm.
stumbled upon her deck called the Galactic Heritage Cards.
Oh.
And they are very much like a tarot card because each card is a picture of something, and
mhm,
then when you pull that card, then that might be happening in your life, type of thing. So all
Mhm.
these cards are with different ET civilizations, and the lessons that they learned through what they were going through
Mhm.
over hundreds of millions, even billions of years. So the big thing is polarity, that
mm,
the separation, right? So almost, from what I gather, almost every civilization went through a time just like we're going in right now,
mm,
of separation, of
Mhm.
power and money, corruption. And so they learned through that, and that's how they can say, like, hey, we can help, but you with this. And those cards, not the plugger cards, but those cards, they're really kind of cool because you're like, they'd say, like, there was a time where the vegans, they were overconfident, they were arrogant, and they didn't listen to anybody. They just, they had, these technological advances, and they were going conquering other planets, and they had to learn that lesson of that arrogance isn't the best way, type of thing. So those
Mhm.
types of things. But so that's where they're involved with helping us, but certainly behind the scenes, and only, in key points, which leads you to the next question, like, well, who decides what is our key point? Who decides this, that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a section on governance, and I tried to dig as much as I could and present the topic of, there's ETs out there, civilizations. Is there anybody watching, watching the store? And the
Mm-hmm.
resounding answer is that yes. And there's different levels depending on what source you go to. There's all variations of the same of leadership type of governance, about ET's involvement with each other and then certainly with Earth, and
Mm-hmm.
very much hands off Earth. Let them do their own thing until
Mm,
they evolve and mature, and then we'll bring them into our fold. And that's the true first contact.
mm,
Is not only do we know about them, because I mean, let's call it, they've got to be out there. Like there's so many things,
Right. Yeah.
so
The
okay, we get it.
possibilities.
Yeah, we get it, but they're not really involved. But first contact is openly, yes, we're here. We're Palladians, we're Syrians, whatever it may be. And we want to open up our planet, our civilization for commerce, for in knowledge exchange, for resource
mm.
exchange. Like we'll be part of the galactic family.
Mm.
Interesting.
And that's the Galactic Federation is the first one that kind of was made popular by the Israel defense minister, said that U.S. I'm just saying what he said. He said the U.S. has a contract with ETs for knowledge exchange and a commonly found resource on the planet that they wanted, and there's a contract between us for them. Who knows if that happens?
Hmm.
Dolores Cannon, some of her patients or
Mm.
contacts said the same thing. Is it happening? I don't know. But anyway, so that's where we're headed, I think.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So, in summary, not all extraterrestrials are bad. The grays, who are the probers, they get a lot of press because of their sensational acts,
Yes, yeah,
Mm.
but there are ascended extraterrestrials out there, and we can access their knowledge on a personal level, right?
yes,
If
yes.
we go inside ourselves and find
Mm-hmm,
our oneness with the universe, and we
mm-hmm,
can do that through meditation. You mentioned automatic writing. You mentioned scrying. Are
mm-hmm.
there any practical things our listeners can do to help us connect with the wisdom of these ascended beings?
Well, one thing, selfishly, is chapter 16 in my book has a protocol from a good friend of mine, Marty Rawson. He has a protocol for how to connect, how to
Mm,
contact. And then the chapter before that gets into detail about how to prepare. And then Marty kind of walks through like what you can do, what you can say, in more of a guided and a meditative type of state. And then Stephen Greer, who is a big ufologist and former military, has a CE5, close encounter of the fifth kind, which means interaction. He has an app which goes through not only material and this and that, but has guided meditations, and it has a network of people that you can go and meet with and have sessions with. But you listen to this in meditation to bring, his big thing is
mm,
coherence, to bring your thought coherence together, and then send out. A couple people have mentioned this. You send out like remote viewing, if you know
mm.
the concept, you have
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
help them know where you are. So you
Yes.
do that, and then that can also do that.
And
Very
the
cool.
book again is Awkward Awakening, Find Your Way Home. And the author, Dr.
Yeah.
Scott.
Thank you. Thank
Guerin.
you. Yes.
Scott, so would you be able to join our Patreon group, our Tier 4 Patreon group, and talk through maybe some of this protocol that you mentioned and maybe
Sure.
take us through
Yeah.
some of these experiences with our Tier 4 group at the end of November?
Sure. Absolutely.
Oh, that would be
November
I'll be here.
30th.
Oh, we
30th.
have a
Okay.
date.
Okay.
Wonderful. Oh,
Yeah. I'd be
thank
happy
you.
to do that.
Oh, so excited for that. I have to tell you, Scott, before this talk, I really wasn't sure about how I feel about extraterrestrials. I'm just going to be completely transparent. Like
Mm.
I'm not that psychic, like I'm not that spiritual person, but you are
Oh,
opening
good.
my mind to the possibility of these beings because why not? And we are all one. We are all part of the oneness of the universe, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I am open to wisdom no matter where it
Yeah.
comes from.
We have to remember that we're
Mm-hmm.
steeped in separation. It's just where
Mm,
we live right now. We live in a
mm-hmm,
physical, separate thing, and fear is in
mm-hmm.
our DNA. Certainly government, religion, so many people.
Oh,
Parents
preach.
use fear. With my kids, three weeks before Christmas, you better be good. You're not
Oh
going to
yeah, the
get
elf
burned.
on the shelf.
Fear, fear is in our system. So we have to be brave, step out and know that whether it's an ET or angel or demon, whatever situation we're in, we're part of a divine being and a
Mm,
divine eternal soul. Then we are indestructible.
Before
mm.
we let you go, because we're running long, but before we let you go, we have rapid fire questions that we ask every psychic that comes on the
Okay.
show, and
All right.
you
It's our
are
Okay.
favorite
part of.
part.
Okay. Can I duck
So,
them? Duck, duck.
all right, are you
All right.
ready?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. What tarot card do you connect with and why?
The tarot card, the castle card, I guess, because from what little I know, it's all about change.
The t
And
the
it,
tower,
The
yes.
the
tower?
tower card, because it's all about
Oh,
change. And sometimes people fall out of the windows, I think, on that.
hmm.
And that's change. Like people ask for a
Yeah,
change, they pull a tarot card. They're not happy with their job. They pull a tarot card and then they get fired the next day. You know,
Yeah.
well, it's change. Yeah. So yeah, that's the one
right.
I like. I'm on.
All right. Wow. Wow. Okay. Ouija board, good or bad?
It's good. Absolutely
You
good.
think the
Oh,
Ouija board is
Yeah.
wow.
good? Wow.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Dr. Scott is full of surprises.
Okay, what makes a good psychic as opposed to like what signs that a psychic is genuine as opposed to someone just pulling your leg and
Well, the signs for the bad ones are, asking for money, asking for a package
Mm.
deal,
Mm.
telling you, like I got on Instagram, Scott, I've sensed a spiritual convergence with you,
Oh,
and it's that,
Ah,
scantily clad, they're looking right in the camera, please contact me
oh
for a message.
no. Oh
So
no.
I got the package deal. No, no, no,
yeah.
no. So it's a money thing. It's
Mm,
and then the genuineness, the giving, the positivity on the good side. That
mm.
it's all positive. It's all supportive.
Okay, Scott, is there a mystical or woo-woo theory that is just too out there for you?
The one thing that I'm trying to get my head around is that when you look at people, different people meet people, they could all be you, you know, they could all be you
Oh,
in another timeline, another,
What?
damn. That is
you
that
just,
mind. You just
I
put
know,
me through
isn't that?
something.
It's just, I mean, we're all one. We got that down. If we're all one, then we're all expressions of one. So
I'm feeling some
I
kind of
must
way.
be Jill. I must have been, I'm Jen, maybe at the same time. I don't know.
Oof. I am so sorry if that's
I know.
true.
Yeah.
You would probably make a better Jill, less goofy Jill.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Okay.
What
Oof.
psychic, living or dead, would you want to meet? And what would you want to learn from them?
I would say Jesus,
Ooh, that's a
Mm,
good
because a lot of
one.
people, and I would agree. I mean, certainly if you believe that, the miracles and who he was and all that, he was definitely operating on many, dimensions, right? With the
mm.
Mm,
physical healings, that type of thing, and obviously his
the
wisdom.
water to wine thing, that's one
Yeah,
of his party
yeah,
tricks.
yeah. And I really believe he is a mystic, and
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
that there's an aspect of him that I would like to get closer to.
Mm. I'm a Jesus fan myself.
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to give a message to a new soul incarnating for the first time, what would it be?
Maybe come back a little
Yeah.
later.
Come back later.
Oh my gosh, that's
That's
You
awesome.
may want to skip this part. Well, incarnating now, I would say you are on a extremely rare occurrence of watching a planet transition to a higher dimension. And you're going
Mm,
to witness all the stuff, all the crap, all the garbage. You're going to go through all that, which is part of the process. But if you're
Mm.
coming in now, that's what you're gonna be a part of, and maybe called upon to help people navigate this as we get into our next phase.
Scott, where can people pick up your book, Awkward Awakenings, Find Your Way Home?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon, on audiobook, paperback, ebook in a few weeks, like end of November. Hardcover will be available through that as well. Also in Barnes and Noble.
And I
Very
would like
good.
to say that I really am enjoying the
Oh,
audible version of your book, but also I
thank you.
cannot wait to get my hands
Yeah,
on
yeah,
a printed copy
yeah.
because both are valuable and you can I love listening to it, but I also want to underline. So get
Yeah, yeah.
both. Get both people.
And
How
then
can our,
on
go
my
ahead.
website, angelandtraining.org is my
There we go.
website. You go to Awkward Awakening page, and in a few, maybe towards the beginning of December, I'll have signed copies available. If you want to have a gift for someone,
Nice.
Yay.
and you can find out just more about what's going on. I'll be on the road again. I'll be doing a big tour, like in first part of next year at different Barnes and Nobles
That's so
around.
exciting,
Yeah,
Scott.
yeah. So I'm
Stop.
gonna start out on the East Coast, and just see, how to get in there. So
All
Well, you will
right.
have to let us know if you're going to be in the Midwest.
yes, I want to get a collection and then do a few because they're all over. There's like 500 stores nationwide, but
Oh, yeah. Let
yeah.
us know. We'd love to